Check the mic and make sure it sound right.
Hi, I'm DKWILL, and this is DK. We'll talk about it. I thought I would talk about this article here from today. Here's XRP price after the ETF approval. If XRP ETFs get 15 to 30% of Bitcoin ETF inflows. I don't necessarily think that XRP is going to get 15 to 30% of Bitcoin ETF inflows. It's quite possible, but I also think there's going to be a whole new percentage generated of outside interest, not necessarily flowing from Bitcoin, but being added to Bitcoin's inflows, and consequently just an increase in inflows into cryptocurrency based exchange traded funds. That's what I anticipate. But on this article by Sam Wisdom Raphael, we've read his stuff before. I'm just going to go through it because I saw it and I thought it was worth sharing because of the prospects that it sets out. It says XRP's price could reach greater heights if XRP ETFs secure only a fraction of Bitcoin ETF inflows following their approval. I haven't been coy about saying my prospects for Bitcoin. And even though the evidence seems to suggest otherwise, of course, I have Bogey the Parrot. Let's not forget that. And it seems to suggest that Bitcoin may find a long-term shelf life. I'm going to stand by my guns on that. I don't think Bitcoin is going to prove to be the wonderful asset that many think it is, other than, like I've always said, and I've said it before others were saying it, believe it or not. It doesn't matter if you believe it. It just matters if it's true. And it is true that unless it's grandfathered in as a store of value, Bitcoin is going to die. Okay, not popular, not really highly supported by evidence so far. I'm going to stick by it. We'll see down the road. It says the potential approval for a spot XRP exchange traded fund in the United States could lead to massive price implications for the asset, with XRP's regulatory hurdles largely resolved and institutional appetite on the rise. The odds of approval have increased. I've also been pretty clear about that institutional appetite. It's always been there, and as a matter of fact, Bogey agrees. And then, as a more matter of fact, that's the reason they're going with exchange traded funds prior to actually just Bogey, please. Spot priced XRP type offerings, because they can manipulate the market, basically. And that's what they're doing, because the institutional appetite already exists. Interestingly, now, will it grow? Yes. Interestingly, Polymarket sets an 80% chance of an XRP ETF approval this year. That's the obvious. And I have a video out about that. October was the target date that I set. And it looks like it's going to come in at June, but October is absolutely the back wall, according to the SEC's own timelines for ETF approvals and for particular forms that are filed in that regard. It says, as market participants anticipate these products, most expect a bullish impact on XRP price, especially if they record similar success to Bitcoin's ETFs. Okay, going on, it says, data from Social Value indicates that Bitcoin ETFs have accumulated approximately $39 billion in net inflows since their introduction in January of 2024. That's over a year and 3 quarters ago. If XRP, 1 quarter. If XRP ETFs capture just 15 to 30% of that figure, the price of XRP could skyrocket. Absolutely, yes. And if you like the content I'm providing, please make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications, and then come back for more DK Will Talk About It. For instance, assuming XRP ETFs attracts 15%, that's the low end estimate. Bogey. This would equate to 5.85 billion entering XRP focused funds. To me, 5.85 billion is modest. Very modest. Applying a modest inflow to valuation multiplier of 100x, this 5.85 billion could boost XRP's market cap by 585 billion. Notably, when added to the current market cap of around 130 billion, the new total valuation would reach 715 billion. So in other words, we're beginning to approach $1 trillion market cap for XRP, something that a lot of people balked about and cried about, but really it's so easily attainable. But what we want to know is, what does it mean for price? It says, meanwhile, XRP circulating supplies currently stands at 58.44 billion tokens. Factoring in this figure would place the price at about $12.23 per token. That represents a 450% surge from its current trading price of $2.22. So how does a $12 XRP sound to you? If you bought 1,000 XRP just recently for 2,000 and change, we'll say 2,200, and now all of a sudden your 2,200 is worth 12,200, wouldn't that make you pretty happy? That's a nice return. How about those of us that have been around a little longer, and your dollar cost average is way below $2, way below 50 cents? Look at the potential income there. How much would you be willing to sell? Do you have a strategy? Do you have a strategy of releasing some of your coins, or are you going to hold out forever? That's something to start thinking about now, the same way we were talking about thinking about it before it got to the $2 range, because it happened pretty quickly. It says, however, doubling that share to 30%, stop bogey, of Bitcoin ETF inflows would have even more dramatic implications. This higher percentage would result in 11.7 billion in net capital moving into XRP ETFs. This would lead to a $1.17 trillion increase in XRP's total valuation by applying the same 100x multiplier. When combined with the existing $130 billion market cap, XRP's valuation could climb to about $1.3 trillion. This new valuation yields an XRP price of $22.20. Considering the supply of 58.44 billion tokens, such an increase would mark a nearly 900% appreciation from today's price. Now, we know that XRP has seen $50,000% increases. So while these numbers are remarkable, they are not unheard of when it comes to the appreciation potential, specifically of XRP. Now, of course, others will rise. Like Brad Garlinghouse has hinted, all boats will rise. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Don't forget those little sleepers out there. But what I do recommend is have a strategy to unload. Have a strategy to reinvest in a more secure environment. Now, I don't think, sorry about bogey, I don't think that XRP will ever be an insecure environment. But sometimes after you've taken a high risk on your investments, sometimes it's time to de-risk and go for something more stable, less volatile. And I'll tell you my plans. My initial plans for ease of operation is to transfer any profits I take from XRP to RLUSD, or a similar type stable coin, but very likely RLUSD. Very likely Ripple's stable coin. And then go from there. It says, while these projections rely on assumptions, the growing interest in XRP ETF products supports the idea that institutional investment could flood the market once approvals are granted. Now, that's true, but the hidden truth is they're already doing it. They're already coming in. They are not of the nature to buy high. And those sleeper institutions that are waiting because they have cold feet and they can't get in, they're gonna suffer. But they also have the big dollars to continue to push the price up to get a part of it, because those who are in the know that XRP itself, as a part of the new monetary system, as a backbone to the new monetary system, along with the XRPL and the RLUSD and all the other cooperative platforms out there, is worth far more than $22.20. Now that sounded crazy before when we were saying it was worth way more than the 30 cents or the 10 cents or the 15 cents or the 40, 50 cents. And yes, you can track my record. You'll go back there. You'll see that when it was 50 and 60 cents, I was saying get it, because I said, and I'll say again, the time will come when it won't matter about those little pennies you're jumping over to get it. It will matter as whether you have it or you don't. So if you have $1,000 to put into XRP, that you can put it in XRP and relax and let it go to work for you, you probably should do it. 500, you probably should do it. Keep in mind, this is just my personal opinion. I'm not a financial advisor. Don't hold me to anything I say. But I would advise you to at least consider the things I say. So this article I found very interesting, and I hit the meat of the matter. I'm not going to continue reading it anymore because this is DK. We'll talk about it, and I've talked about it. What I really want to talk about is the anticipation for those who are holding XRP to reasonably anticipate a price of about $12. And I think of Coins Kid and his 11 and 17 and 13 and 30 some dollar projections, and then it can reasonably anticipate a price of about $22. Folks, I don't think it's going to wait to get there. I think when it happens, it's just going to happen. And it's not going to be a gradual incline over a month. You might see it happen over 3, 4, 5 days. So you also might see a change in legislation too. And I'm not going to give up on my anticipation that it may be considered systemically important. It may be considered a public good. It may be taken out of the hands of those of us who hold it at a decent price, just like they did with gold. But now we're back into gold. And that's another thing I advise you to buy. There's videos back there, the gold bug and everything else. There's my videos back there. And I know it's been a while since I did a video, but I said it on the outset. I don't always do videos until I find something to talk about. Something to talk about for me to buy out the time to get this video out like I did on this one. So this is the absolute only thing I wanted to cover. I'm glad you guys are still with me. Come on back. You'll get more information. I encourage anyone who stumbled across this video to consider looking back at my history of videos and getting some major conceptual foundation on not just XRP, but on investing for the average individual, not the complications, of a Series 7 and all that type individual, but for the average individual to understand about the psychology of the market and market manipulation and the prospects for banks and everything else that's back there. I encourage you to check it out. But in the meantime, I want you to know something. I'm DK Will, and this is DK Will Talk About It, and I've talked about it. Have a wonderful day.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right.